Hey everyone, this is Dan. Let's talk about Moderna and BioNTech. Is it a time to buy or sell? First of all, I'd like to say that my target for Moderna is still $180 to $200 a share, and for BioNTech, $130 to $150 a share. However, in my previous video published about a month ago, I said these price targets will be achieved by the end of April, and because of the recent tech sell-off, I have to revise my target date to the end of July 2021. I'll talk more about it in the next few minutes. In this video, I will share with you some of the more important news that have affected the stock prices, and I'll go into the charts. We will look at the COVID cases in the US, UK, and Israel, where they have high percentages of populations vaccinated with either the BioNTech vaccine or the Moderna vaccine. And I'll go into an updated valuation of the two companies. Finally, I will compare the different vaccines available on the market now. Let's look at the news items with the chronological order from the most recent to the older ones. As of today, there's a piece of news that came out saying that Spain, Germany, France, and Italy have stopped administering the AstraZeneca vaccine because of concerns about adverse side effects. That's really unfortunate for AstraZeneca and for some of the people that could have benefited from it. However, the flip side is that it's going to help BioNTech and Moderna. In the last video, we talked about the UK variant and the South African variant of the COVID virus. Now, they found there's an even more dangerous variant in Brazil. A recent study suggested that the Brazilian variant may be resisting antibodies in people who already had and recovered from COVID-19 previously, and that's very alarming. On March 11th, Reuters reported that the Novovax vaccine was 96% effective against the original coronavirus and is 86% effective against the British variant. Novovax expects FDA approval for the vaccine as early as May, so that might be a bit of competition for BioNTech and Moderna. On March 9th, BioNTech reported that they plan to increase their production capacity to 3 billion doses in 2022. That's a pretty bullish piece of news. On February 24th, Moderna said they began clinical trials of COVID booster shot for the South African variant, and they sent samples to NIH for study already. On February 27th, FDA granted approval to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine, however, is only 66% effective. On February 25th, Moderna announced their quarterly earnings. As you can see here, their revenue increased tremendously in the most recent quarter. From the fourth quarter of 2019, 14.1 a year ago, to $318.9 million, and their loss has been shrinking steadily. They expect to break even and show a profit in the first quarter of 2021, and they expect the revenue to continue to increase as we predicted. Moderna increased its production plan to 700 million doses, or maybe even up to 1 billion doses in 2021, and they're aiming for 1.4 billion doses in 2022. And then finally, there's a earnings announcement coming up for BioNTech, which is going to be on March 30th, 2021. I will definitely stay tuned for that earnings announcement. Before we go into the charts, we'd like to understand what's happening in the broad market. This is the summary of last month of the different sectors. As you can see, the best performing sector was the energy sector, next to that the financial sector. If you look at the bottom here, the worst performing sectors are the tech sector and healthcare sector. Unfortunately, Moderna and BioNTech, they perform very close to the tech sector. Actually, their volatility is even higher than XLK or QQQ, which is the ETF indexed to the NASDAQ 100. And that's why Moderna and BioNTech came down quite a bit in the last month and didn't start to recover until about 4 days ago. Let's look at the charts here for the tech sector. First of all, the candlestick chart here is XLK, the tech sector ETF. The beige color line here is QQQ, the ETF pegged to the Nasdaq 100 index. And then the blue color line here is XLV, the healthcare sector. As you can see, QQQ and XLK dropped quite a bit. XLV also decreased, but not as steep. And that's why if we see the prices of BioNtech and Moderna dropping, you can see how much of it is because of the broad market action and how much of it is related to the companies themselves. Here's the daily chart for Moderna. It peaked out around February 8th at an all-time high of 189.26. And then when the tech sector started to go down, Moderna went down with it. After the earnings announcement on February 25th, it picked up for a couple of days, but then because of the overall broad market was really still sinking, Moderna continued to sink, and then it didn't turn around until the beginning of March, pretty much at the same time when the tech sector started to turn around. You can see that the pattern here is very similar to the pattern in November or December of last year. And the good news is that we have been able to achieve a higher low and also a slightly higher high here. So overall, the broad trend here is fairly bullish. In the meanwhile, the MACD is just about to send out a bullish signal. Finally looks like it's turning the corner and it's getting bullish again. If you look at the hourly chart for Moderna, that's even more bullish. You can see in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, it's been trending upward. And we do see the positive buy signal from DMI from last Friday morning and also followed by a positive buy signal from MACD. Because of all the bullish indications, I bought some shares of Moderna today at 141.3. As far as my trading history for Moderna, you might have seen in the update notes from my previous video, I sold Moderna at a pretty good price, 152.8, around this time here. When it dropped a little bit, that wasn't a good move. I bought in at 149.9, although I didn't buy too many shares, fortunately. And then when the market started tanking because of the tech sector dump, I sold at 137.1 for a certain number of shares. At that point, I still hold on to half of my Moderna shares because I have confidence in the fundamentals of the company. And when it bottomed out and started to recover, then I did a little bottom fishing and bought it at 134.1. And then I waited for a few days, and today I felt comfortable enough and bought more shares at 141.3. Before we move on, if you like what you've seen so far, I'd like to remind you to please click the like, subscribe, and notification button so that you'll be notified when I post the next video. And this is also for the sake of the YouTube algorithm. Let's look at the support and resistance levels for Moderna. As you can see here, Moderna, it came down back in the beginning of November and started to go up when it was just around the 100-day simple moving average, which is the beige color dashed line. And then a few days ago, it hit the 100-day simple moving average again and bounced back up. And then with the previous dip, it actually got support at the 50-day moving average. So these moving averages are really the very important support points. And also we have a resistance point because the 50-day moving average will be either the support point or the resistance point. At this level of 143.66, the closing price today, hopefully the 50-day moving average will turn into support. And if it goes below that in the next few days, then it will turn into resistance. Let's hope that it will go above that. The next level of resistance will be here at 158, which is this short-term peak here. And then we'll see another support level at 100-day moving average, 128. Let's look at BioNTech. This is the daily chart. It has a pattern that's very similar to Moderna's. Because of the tech sector dump, it went down for about 2 weeks and then finally turned around as the tech sector turned around. It's been pretty much going up in the last 5 days. This pattern here is very similar again, like Moderna. It's similar to the November-December pattern. But this chart is not quite as bullish as Moderna's chart. Remember, Moderna made the higher lows and higher highs. But with BioNTech, this peak was not nearly as high as that. And that's why it's really forming this triangular pattern. With this type of pattern, as the time axis moves to the right, the price will have to either break upward or downward at the apex of the triangle. And that's why I have not been buying BioNTech in the last few days. I'm waiting for the price to come to some kind of conclusion at the apex of this triangle, which hopefully will happen within the next week or so. In the meanwhile, we do see the MACD almost showing a buy signal here. Let's look at the hourly chart, which is a little bit more bullish. We see this ascending triangle, and it's actually in the last few hours, the price is breaking above this ascending triangle. We see a positive bullish DMI buy signal here and a bullish MACD buy signal here. If you've been watching my update notes below my last video, you would have seen that I sold BioNTech stocks at pretty good price levels. On February 22nd, I sold 117.3, and on February 23rd, I sold 107.8, and since then, I haven't bought or sold anything yet. So I'm just waiting for more positive indication before I jump in. Let's look at the support and resistance levels. Right here, we are right on top of this 50-day moving average, which will either act as a support point or resistance point. Let's hope that the price will get above that tomorrow so that this line will become the support point. Then the next resistance level will be at this peak here, 119. If the price can get above that peak, that's a very bullish sign. Then the next support level will be at 96, which is the 150-day moving average. The 150-day moving average shows support here back in the beginning of January. And that's why I believe that's a very important support point. And if that support point is breached, the next support level will be at this previous low of $90 a share. Let's hope we don't get back to that point anytime soon. I always keep track of the new daily COVID cases in the US, UK, and Israel because these three countries have high percentages of populations vaccinated with either the BioNTech or Moderna vaccine. In the US, you can see that the number of daily cases has come down significantly. There's almost a 75 to 80% decrease. And 32.9 doses per 100 people have been administered. In the UK, 39.02 doses per 100 people have been administered. And the decrease is even more impressive. That's almost like more than a 90% decrease. In Israel, where they have 104.3 doses per 100 people, mostly those are the BioNTech vaccine, the decrease has been very impressive also, around 70 to 75%. These are the best validations of the effectiveness of the Moderna vaccine and the BioNTech vaccine. And that's very, very good news for the two companies. This is a recap of what I mentioned last time, because comparing with all the other vaccines, BioNTech and Moderna really have the most effective vaccines in the world. And because of the various trouble and low effectiveness rate of the AstraZeneca vaccine, it's very likely that BioNTech and Moderna will take over the market share of AstraZeneca in the developed nations. So if you look at the number of doses that the developed nations have ordered from AstraZeneca and look at BioNTech and Moderna potential replacement for these doses, there is a total of 894 million doses, but among which I think US and EU already increased orders from Moderna and BioNTech by about 200 million doses. So that's why there are about at least 694 million doses to be captured by Moderna and BioNTech. And then if you look at Johnson & Johnson, which is less than 70% effective, they have at least about 400 million orders from developed nations. And that's why you add up these two numbers, then there's potentially the possibility of 1 billion doses. That'll be won over by Moderna or BioNTech. Incidentally, I showed this chart about a month ago, and the numbers are from the Bloomberg World Vaccine Tracker. When I went into the Bloomberg website today, they show the exact same numbers for AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson. That means these two companies have not received any new orders for their vaccines in the last month. On the other hand, if you look at the numbers for BioNTech and Moderna, both numbers have increased from last month. That means new orders are coming in for BioNTech and Moderna, but not so much for AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson, exactly as I predicted last month. I showed this Moderna valuation first time around the end of November. Since then, I've updated several times. The method I use is that I use the current number of doses on contract for 2021, and then I used 12.4 average forward PE ratio based on the leading pharmaceutical companies, and assume a 33% net margin, which is the net margin for Regeneron. And then I extrapolate from the 2021 signed contract. And then recently, we have to add in the consideration that Moderna and BioNTech will very likely capture some of the AstraZeneca and J&J market shares, and then also the booster shots that Moderna is developing against the new variants. These are all very bullish developments for Moderna. On February 24th, Moderna announced that they're aiming for 0.7 billion to 1 billion doses of production for 2021, which is in line with my projection here. On February 24th, Moderna predicted 2022 production of 1.4 billion doses, which is even higher than my assumption here. With these numbers, I conservatively arrived at my conclusion of $180 to $200 a share. I'm pretty sure I have to revise these numbers upward later on, as soon as the investors start to catch on that the developing nations are really choosing Moderna or BioNTech and nothing else. This is my valuation of BioNTech, very similar to Moderna, although there have been some increases in the numbers I've used. On March 9th, Pfizer announced that they were aiming for 1.4 billion doses for 2022, which is in line with my projection here. And with these assumptions, I arrive at a conservative estimate of $130 to $150 a share. Let's look at the other analyst opinions. I'm comparing the numbers from today against the numbers I posted about a month ago. Anything that's new today is highlighted with yellow background. Yahoo increased their average target from 150.15 to 174.25. That's a very significant increase. I think that's in light of the Moderna quarterly earning announcements. And BioNTech, Yahoo increased it from 119.1 to 120.28. Very small increase. Louis Navellier did not change his opinion. TipRanks.com increased the high target from 206 to 208 for Moderna, and increased the average target from 152 to 168, and increased the low target from 69 to 80. For BioNTech, they decreased the high target for BioNTech from 130 to 126, not much of a decrease, and decreased the average target from 122 to 116, and keeps the low target the same at 106. CNN Money also increased their targets. The high target went from 206 to 208. Medium target went from 150 to 182. Pretty big jump. And the low target remains at 80. Overall, the analysts' opinions point to a very bullish scenario for Moderna and pretty much the same picture for BioNTech. We've shown this chart previously, but I just want to recap it because it's so important. First of all, Pfizer BioNTech, the vaccine, is 52% effective after the first dose, 95% effective after the second dose, and the price is $20 per dose. Moderna is 80.2% effective after the first dose and 95.6% effective after the second dose. It's a bit more expensive. It's $32 to $37 a dose. Johnson & Johnson is one dose vaccine at 68% effective rate at a much lower price of $10 a dose. And I do think the developed nations, especially where they have democracy, the leaders and the politicians will want to buy BioNTech vaccine and Moderna vaccine for their constituents, because if a politician wants to be reelected, they will have to say, I bought you the best vaccine in the world. There's no way that they can tell the constituents that I bought you the third or the fourth best vaccine in the world because I'm cheap. If they said that, they would never get reelected. And that's why I've been projecting that BioNTech and Moderna will capture some of the market shares from Johnson & Johnson as well as from the other vaccine makers. And from what we saw previously in one of those charts, that's already happening. AstraZeneca, 76% effective first dose and 82% effective for the second dose, but apparently it's been running into a lot of problems with side effects. Sinovac is a two-dose vaccine, depending on where the results are reported from. Turkey reported 91% effective, Indonesia 65%, and Brazil only 50%. And Sinopharm is a two-dose vaccine. The UAE reported that it's 86% effective, still not as effective as Moderna or BioNTech. And then Gamaleya, Sputnik from Russia is 91.6% effective. Definitely Moderna and BioNTech vaccines are the best defense against COVID-19 so far. The other thing is that Moderna is aggressively developing a booster shot for the new variants. I'm pretty sure BioNTech is doing the same because the mRNA technology both companies use are so much faster and accurate than the conventional technologies for developing vaccines. And that's why I'm very bullish about these two companies. Again, to recap my conclusion, my target for Moderna is 180 to 200 and BioNTech 130 to 150 before the end of July 2021. If you're watching this video a few days after March 15, 2021, you might want to check the update section below the video, just in case I have added update notes for new developments. I'd like to remind you to please click the like, subscribe, and notification button if you like what you've seen so far. And this is also for the sake of the YouTube algorithm. As usual, I will very much welcome your comments, questions, and suggestions. Finally, I'd like to remind you that I'm not a financial advisor. I share my trading strategies for educational purpose only. You should make your own decision about buying or selling stocks and should probably consult with your advisors before you do so. This about wraps up my video for now. I will chat with you again in the next few days. In the meanwhile, I'd like to wish you the very best with your financial investments.